Hi, my name is Don Tate. I am a children's book author and illustrator of more than 80 trade and educational books for young readers. I'm coming at you today from the music capital of the world, Austin, Texas, where no, I do not play music. I illustrate children's books. This afternoon, I'm looking forward to sharing with you my newest book, Pigskins to Paintbrushes, the story of football playing artist Ernie Barnes. After I read the book, I want to share with you some of the inspiration behind why I wanted to write this story and why I thought that Ernie Barnes was such an important historical figure to share with young readers. And so, without further ado, I'm going to get to the book. I dedicated this book because I think dedications are so important. This is the dedication of the book. Who I dedicated this to my friends at the Highlights Foundation, where this story began, because this story began many years ago at a writing conference where I was on faculty at Highlights. And I started writing that very first draft. And I set the draft down. I didn't come back to it for many years, but that's the writing process. Writing is all about a process. It doesn't happen that very first time off. Sports didn't come easy for Ernest. He couldn't run very fast. He couldn't dribble a basketball to save his life. No one picked him to play on their teams. Ernest felt pretty lousy about it. I couldn't conform easily to the athletic idea. It seemed most everyone expected boys to be good at sports, especially in the Bottoms, a neighborhood of hardworking but poor African Americans in Durham, North Carolina. Ernest was good at something, however. He was good at art. In his sketch pad, he drew pictures of trees, clouds, animals, and people. In the mud after a light rain, he sketched flowing lines all over his yard. Ernest never said much. His artwork was his voice. Opportunities to learn about art were slim for kids in the Bottom during the 1930s. Art museums, as well as restaurants, hotels, and most colleges, were off limits to Black people. Segregation was the law that kept white people and Black people apart. But laws didn't stop Ernie's mother from finding a way. Ernest's father was a shipping clerk at a tobacco company in Durham. His mother worked in the home of an attorney, a man who loved classical music and art. Sometimes she took Ernest along with her to her job. While she worked, Ernest scanned the art books the attorney had welcomed him to look at, books brimming with the works of revered artists such as Toulouse-Lautrec, Delacroix, and Michelangelo. Bold, expressive brushstrokes, bright, vivid colors, long, exaggerated physiques painted Ernest's memories for years to come. At school, Ernie was a bully magnet, a boy who didn't play sports, who loved art, played a trombone, and enjoyed reading poetry. He got teased for being different. They hated me, he once said. One day after class, kids circled around. They shoved Ernest. They snatched away his trombone. Ernest fell and skinned his knee. After that, his teacher allowed him to leave school early to avoid more fights. At home, Ernest flooded his sketch pad with hurt feelings. When I was at home and drawing, I was happy. I made friends with lines. The taunts continued in junior high. One day, someone walloped him over the head with a book. Every eye fixed on Ernest. He froze. Always drawing, someone said. You gonna be an artist, baby? Someone else mocked. Then someone blurted out, he ain't got no guts. That's why he won't play. Play football. That's what real boys do, so many people thought. When the teasing became unbearable, Ernest dragged himself to the coach's office and joined the football team. Practice began with the ear-piercing whistle, but Ernest couldn't keep up. Running in a helmet, running in a helmet and pads was like exercising in an oven. The coach fumed. "You will never be nothing," he yelled. His berating didn't stop there either. "You too pretty to play this game." That was it. Ernest quit the team. In high school, the pressure to play football turned up again. A boy like Ernest, everyone thought, would surely make a great defensive lineman. Ernest had a plan, though. He instructed his mother to just say no should any coaches coming around wanting him to play football. But she didn't listen. Over a prayer and a plate of fried chicken, she and the coach made the final decision. Ernest would become number 73 on the Hillside Hornets. Ernest was miserable, but his sketch pad and pencil soothed him. In a quiet hallway far from the football field, Ernest released his troubles onto the page. Then one day he got caught. "What are you doing there, boy?" A voice cut the silence. It was Mr. Tucker, the weightlifting coach. He took Ernest's sketch pad. But then Mr. Tucker smiled. "Did you do these drawings?" he asked. "Yes, sir," said Ernest. Mr. Tucker chatted with Ernest about his art. They chatted about football and grades too, and bodybuilding. Turned out exercise had helped Mr. Tucker to become a better athlete. Could bodybuilding help Ernest become a better football player too? Maybe. Ernest couldn't wait to find out. For a while, Ernest's attention turned away from art. Instead, he focused on muscle building. At home, he followed Mr. Tucker's instructions. He exercised and lifted weights. He pushed himself all summer. When football season began in the fall, Ernest was a muscle machine with the confidence to match. Not only did he play football, but Ernest also became the team captain. Later, he joined the track team too, becoming state champion in the shot put. By graduation, he had earned 26 athletic scholarships to colleges and universities. After that, no one messed with the 6'3", nearly 250-pound lineman ever again. "I loved to win," Ernest said. No offers came from Duke University, only 7 miles from his home, or the University of North Carolina. Black players weren't allowed. Segregation was still the law. His mom promised him a car if he'd stay home and attend nearby North Carolina College, an all-black school that welcomed him with a full-ride scholarship. And so that's what Ernest did. He played hard-nosed football. He heaved the discus and hurled the shot put, but his heart longed to create. Ernest quit the track team to devote more time to developing as an artist. "I never left art," Ernest said. He adored the large studio classrooms, the easels, the sweet smell of oil paints. He studied anatomy, perspective, light, and shade, and he experimented with new mediums like charcoal and inks. And he learned more about art history too. Sometimes Ernest got stuck for ideas on what to paint. He asked his art teacher about it. "If you're going to be an artist, you've got to work from your experiences," the teacher told Ernest. "When you're out on the field, check out what is going on around you." Ernest listened, and then he realized how football and art were one and the same. Both required rhythm, both required technique. Passing, pulling, breaking down the field, that was an art. For Ernest, art and football could not be divided. So from that point forward, he painted images from the football game. While Ernest grew up admiring art in books, he had never actually been in an art museum. Laws prevented that. But now the laws had changed. When an upcoming field trip to the North Carolina Museum of Art was announced, Ernest was over the moon excited. Other than the post office, the museum was the fanciest place he had ever been. Some paintings on the walls were realistic, others were abstract. Ernest was having a great time, but he also felt disappointed. Something was missing. Where are the paintings by Negro artists? He asked the museum guide. I'm afraid your people just don't express themselves this way, she said. Words as cold as ice. Words Ernest knew weren't true. Laws had changed, people's attitudes had not. After college, Ernest was ready to pursue a career in art. He even sold his first painting to a basketball player. The $90 I received was great, Ernest said, but the real excitement was having him hang my painting in his home. Nothing slowed Ernest's dreams, except for maybe one thing, an offer to play in the American Football League. On draft day, professional teams chose players, and Ernest hoped to get picked. A career in football would make him a rich man. On the morning of the draft, he opened the sports section of the newspaper and searched for his name. Ernest's hands were sweating. His heart pounded. Several of his teammates were listed, but his name was missing. And then he saw it. Ernest Barnes, a tackle at North Carolina College. He dashed out to the garden to show his mom, "Look, Mama, I got drafted by the Colts." Wow, imagine that. A kid from the bottom, who no one chose to play on their team, was now in demand from the biggest football league in the nation. Now, I'm not going to share the entire story with you. I encourage you to get a copy of Pigskins to Paintbrushes and learn the ending of the story. But let me share this with you. Ernie Barnes continued on a dual path. What I mean by that is that he continued to paint pictures and he continued to play football. And he did not allow anyone to try to define who he should be. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read this last page to you. The last page of the story is probably my favorite in the entire book. Ernest Barnes had been a boy who liked art. He was shy, he was quiet. Others tried to decide who he should be, but Ernest decided for himself. He became an athlete. He became an artist. This boy could be anything he wanted to be. Football demands creativity, Ernest once said. From pigskins to paintbrushes, Ernie Barnes grew to be successful at being himself. So, what inspired me to write this story? Well, when I was growing up, I loved the TV show Good Times. You probably have not heard of that television show, but when I was a kid, that was my favorite show. At the end of the show, when the credits would roll, they would show a painting created by Ernie Barnes. And that was one of my favorite paintings. It was called The Sugar Shack. So I always knew that one day that I would eventually tell the story of Ernie Barnes. I was also inspired when I learned that when Ernie Barnes was a kid, he wasn't good at sports. And when I was a kid, I was not good at sports. I could not dribble a basketball to save my life. So when I learned that little tidbit about Ernie Barnes, I knew that I would be the perfect author to tell that story because I was a visual person too, not a sports person at all. Before I end, I just want to encourage you to participate in the S.T.E.A.M Race to Space Reading Challenge. What did you like about my story? What did you learn about the story? What do you think the overall message of Pigskins to Paintbrushes would be? What is your talent? What is that thing that you can do better than everyone else? Again, my name is Don Tate, and you can find me on the internet on Twitter at Devas, TDEVAS_T, or on Facebook. And you can find a copy of my book either at my publisher's website, which is Abrams Books, or through your local independent bookstore. Thank you.